£20 coin.
Never seen them in my life.
So it's from the Royal Mint, so the same place that all legal tender comes from.
Have you got any other means of payment at the minute?
I don't know. Right. Can I ask why you didn't tell me before you started recording?
So when we go to any incident, our tour of duty and our police protocol is to video every incident we go to achieve the best evidence.
But you've got to notify the person at the first available opportunity.
No, we don't.
You do.
Have you got that from somewhere? Have you read that up somewhere? Or?
Yes, your policy. Yeah.
Okay. Well, at the minute, we're obviously videoing everything because we've been called to an incident. Immediate response where there's some ongoing issue with payment, whether it's a domestic...
999?
Well, that's what's coming as, yeah.
Wow.
Well, we just didn't know what was happening. There was an altercation in the shop, so we've arrived on that instance. Are you going to give me your name?
I'm not, no.
Right, okay. Because is there a reason for that?
Because it's a civil matter, and it's not something that the police can get involved in.
To a degree, you're right. It is a civil matter. But we can deal with it a different way, but obviously, ultimately, you haven't paid for your fuel.
From the moment she arrives, the officer demonstrates that she is completely unprepared for the situation. The auditor immediately notices her body-worn camera and asks why she failed to declare that she was recording. The guidance on this is straightforward. Officers are expected to inform members of the public that they are being recorded at the earliest reasonable opportunity. Rather than acknowledging that obligation, she simply denies that such a requirement even exists. Her handling of the encounter only deteriorates from there. She repeatedly demands the auditor's name despite the fact that this was not a criminal investigation. At its core, the dispute was a civil matter between the auditor and the petrol station. In the absence of any suspected offence, there is no lawful basis to compel someone to identify themselves. Whether she genuinely misunderstood the limits of her authority or deliberately ignored them, neither explanation reflects well on an officer entrusted with enforcing the law.
I have.
But they're not accepting that money.
But that's up to them to accept it. If they decline...
They've obviously run the post office and they've declined that. Ultimately, it's a civil issue, but if you're not willing to give us your details, then how do we know that you're going to resolve the civil issue at a later date? If you're happy to give us your details, then we can look at the civil issue at a later date.
But that's a civil issue, that's nothing for the police to get involved in.
But we don't know your details, do we? So you could technically escape from here and never come back and never deal with that issue, then you'd be circulated as wanted for that, won't you, for making off without payment?
That's not a police issue at the minute.
It is. It is a police issue because you've not paid for fuel. So there's still an offence there of that you've not paid for your fuel.
But I have paid. I've gave them...
But you've gave them this coin, yeah, which ultimately they've spoke to the post office and they've decided that it's not a reasonable amount of payment for your fuel. So at the minute we're sort of hands are tied, agree with you on a certain instance of that, but we still need a solution today, whether we take your details and we deal with it at a later date.
The officer's own words completely undermine her position. She openly acknowledges that the matter is a civil dispute, yet still attempts to manufacture a power to demand identification so it can be resolved later. That is not how policing powers operate. If there is no suspected criminal offence, there is no lawful authority to compel someone to provide their personal details. A disagreement over payment between a customer and a retailer cannot simply be transformed into a police-enforced ID check because the business is dissatisfied with the outcome. Her warning that the auditor could be circulated as wanted was equally baseless. Wanted markers exist for criminal matters, such as suspects, warrants, or failures to appear before a court, not for ordinary contractual disputes. Using the threat of criminal consequences to pressure someone into compliance was not only misleading, it exposed the fact that she lacked any genuine legal footing from the outset.
So basically, he's trying to pay with this. They've run the post office and said that it doesn't really exist, you can't pay with that. He obviously won't give us our details. I've explained to him to a degree it's a civil matter, however, if he does make off and he doesn't give us our details, we're struggling for any sort of civil issue at a later date. Any details and making off without payment, So I've explained if he does give us his details and we know where he is and we can contact him at a later date, hopefully this issue can get resolved. Now he's obviously not really wanting to do that at the minute.
Because it's a civil issue and it's nothing for the police to get involved in.
But you're still going to make off, aren't you? Technically without payment, but if we can get your details...
But I have paid.
But you haven't...
And it is their policy to accept the £20 coin.
Has he paid?
Policy? No, he hasn't.
Right, if you haven't paid and if you walk out the door now...
They've still got the money though.
Just let me finish. If you walk out that door now, you are liable for an arrest because we don't have your details.
But you don't need them.
Well, I do
because it's a civil issue.
But it's not, because a make off without payment is then a police matter.
The second officer arrives and immediately escalates the situation by jumping straight to threats of arrest. That reaction makes little sense given the circumstances. The auditor was still inside the premises, was making no attempt to leave, and was openly engaged in a dispute over payment. A making off without payment allegation simply does not fit those facts. You cannot claim someone has made off when they have not even left the scene, and there was equally no evidence of any intention to avoid payment altogether. What makes the threat even more questionable is the fact that the auditor had already attempted to pay using a £20 Royal Mint coin, which the cashier refused to accept. That single detail seriously undermines any suggestion that he was trying to evade payment. A person actively attempting to settle the bill is doing the exact opposite of someone intending to dishonestly avoid paying.
So if you walk out that door now, it is. If you walk out that door now, you'll be getting arrested for make off without payment.
But there is an agreement with BP that the coin can be used.
Is there any other way that you can pay? Because we're going to sit here for hours arguing. I've been quite respectful to you. I appreciate you have to a degree, and I appreciate that from yourself. You haven't been argumentative with me, and I appreciate that you've been a normal human being. However, we need
I don't intend to. No,
I appreciate
if you
that.
can pay for the fuel now by other means, then that's fair enough. It'll be the end of the matter.
Or if you can give us your details, and we can deal with it at a slower time, we can offer you that. But if you're not willing to do either any, then we're struggling with what we have left to do.
Because we can't let you walk out that door without paying. But
we don't know where you live. You might not even be from around here. I'm not saying you are, but you know what I mean. We have people where they'll make off and then they won't give us our details, and then we're going to struggle. I'm still going to have that £20 of fuel, unfortunately, with this BP garage outstanding.
Which car is it?
But I have paid for the fuel.
But you haven't paid for the fuel. Which one?
Right, we're going round in circles, aren't we?
We are, unfortunately, yeah. We've agreed, we've reasoned with you now, and we've tried to say that if you give us your details, just tell you where you live, we'll deal with it slow time. However, you then leave, you don't have your details, you don't know where you live, you could live in London for all we know, and then there's still this making off without payment because they will not accept this as payment.
But I don't have to identify for a civil issue.
It technically isn't a civil issue though, is it, when you leave and you don't pay? You haven't paid for your fuel. We've got the payment here, which isn't acceptable, so really you haven't paid at the minute.
The entire encounter is built on a false premise. Throughout the exchange, the officers repeatedly warn, "If you leave," as though the auditor was moments away from fleeing without paying. But that situation never actually existed. He was still inside the store, still communicating with staff, and had already attempted to pay using a Royal Mint coin. The officers were not responding to what was happening in front of them. They were reacting to a hypothetical scenario they had imagined into existence. That is not the proper application of law. It is speculation used to justify escalating authority. Their argument about needing his identification was equally weak. Even if they genuinely believed confirming his identity was necessary, his vehicle registration plate was parked directly outside. That provided a lawful and immediate avenue to establish details without resorting to threats or coercion. Instead of pursuing the least intrusive option available, they ignored it entirely and continued demanding identification they had no clear legal power to compel.
Because I've handed the coin over, right. So I haven't got that in my possession, and I've contacted BP head office before coming here.
Right, so was that today then, or?
No.
So when was that then? So you've contacted BP head office before you've come in?
Correct.
Right, so was it to contact them today, or was it yesterday or last week, or?
It's not up to me to say that.
How's it money?
Do you understand what the £20 coin is?
No, that's why I'm confused.
Well, why are you threatening me for arrest then, if you don't know?
Because it's not money.
It is.
Right. We'll agree to disagree.
You don't know that. It is. It's legal tender, the same as a £20 note and a £10 note.
Right, and who did you speak to from the BP garage, the manager?
It's a Royal Mint who issued that £20 coin.
Right. Okay.
So it's the same money as any other money.
If you get someone on the phone to me who we've spoken to earlier, then we could kind of end the matter here, can't we?
But if it's a civil issue, I don't need to assist you.
But at the minute we don't know it's a civil matter.
But I don't need to assist you in a civil issue.
But you do, because it then turns into a police matter because we don't know that coin.
The auditor had already gone further than he realistically needed to by pointing out that BP themselves had confirmed the coin was valid. That should have brought the dispute to an end. Instead, the officer attempted to turn it into a demand, insisting that he personally contact BP again or the matter would somehow become a police issue. That position makes no legal sense. He was under no obligation to assist the officer in proving his own innocence, and refusing to make a phone call does not suddenly transform a civil disagreement into a criminal offence. The responsibility of the police is to assess the facts presented to them and apply the law objectively. It is not the citizen's duty to carry out investigative work on behalf of officers who are unsure of the situation. By shifting the burden back onto the auditor and implying that non-cooperation itself justified escalation, the officer revealed how weak the legal basis for their involvement actually was.
But if it's a civil
You're running the risk
agreement,
of being arrested because you haven't given us the details, and you're going to walk out that door, and it's technically a failure to pay.
but then it'll be a
Make off
civil.
without payment.
But then I'll sue you.
Well, that's
So,
fine. If you want to sue us, that's fine.
unlawful
But
arrest.
like I said, we've been honest with you in terms of which way we can go. The staff here have been very honest, okay? And all I'm saying
Well, he
is, if you
hasn't.
get the person on the phone who you spoke to earlier with the agreement, then that could be the end of the matter. But
you
as
know-
far as I do, then technically, if you walk out the door, it's going to be make without payment.
He's already accepted to take it.
You haven't accepted to take it. No, haven't accepted to take it. You walk out that door, becomes a criminal matter, and you get arrested for make off without payment.
Oh, you give us your
because
details.
You're refusing to give us your details, and we don't know that vehicle is yours because you're not.
But I've told you
Is it urgent?
that he said he would take the coin
But he isn't out.
if I take my mask off.
Right, well I wasn't here for that, so we have no witnesses, unfortunately, other than you and him. Right now I can't view that.
Body camera.
But right now I can't view that. At the end of the day, you've come in, you've paid for you've got your fuel, you've come in. This isn't a payable matter. Once you leave, we've offered you to give us your details and deal with that way. For all I know, that vehicle could register somebody else and lived in London. And how are we ever going to trace you?
But I don't
Once
need
you
to
leave
assist
the
you.
situation, it is making off without payment. I can't be any more reasonable with you and give you some sort of options that we can go.
But I
with,
don't
but you're
need
still
to assist you.
refusing to. Are you offering to give
Because
the
you're
staff,
wrong.
not myself, not my colleague, the staff your name and contact number?
No.
Right, so we have one option, but two will lock you up then.
Well, I've got a civil agreement in the background.
Fine, you can
So-
prove that at court.
I've
You
got
can prove
that.
that at court.
That's
then.
fine. You can prove that
Yeah?
at court.
Right, well, this moment in time, you're currently under arrest for making off without payment. You don't
I
have to
haven't-
say anything,
but I haven't made off.
defence. We don't mention one questions in the legal line. Court, anything you do is a maybe given evidence.
But I haven't made off
So
though.
be arrested for confident factual investigation. Okay?
But I haven't
So
made off.
That you're in precautions level.
And due to the fact you failed to provide details.
But I haven't made off.
Fails to provide details, yeah.
But I haven't made off.
Right, are we going to go calmly? We're going to go quietly?
We would go calmly all the time.
Okay, well, do you want to walk with us then?
Of course.
Thank you. Just come with me, sir, please. Have you got anything in your pockets that's going to harm me or you? Just take them out. It's just a question we ask everybody.
Can we just take your camera off as well, please?
This is the point where the situation stops looking merely incompetent and starts resembling a serious abuse of police powers. The officers arrest the auditor for making off without payment while he is literally still standing inside the store telling them, "I haven't made off." That statement alone should have forced them to reconsider the entire basis for the arrest. The offence they were relying on requires a person to actually leave without paying. He had not left, was not attempting to leave, and made that absolutely clear throughout the encounter. Yet despite all of that, they proceeded with the arrest anyway. From a legal standpoint, the position is extremely difficult to justify. Under the Theft Act, the offence depends on two essential elements. First, the act of making off, and second, an intention to permanently avoid payment. Neither element appears to have been present. The auditor had already attempted to pay using a valid form of payment and remained actively engaged in the dispute inside the premises. At that stage, the disagreement was still ongoing and unresolved, not abandoned.
About 10 months ago, I walked out of those gates after being falsely arrested for using the £20 coin. The Chief Constable has paid out £4,000 in compensation, but unfortunately he did not apologise at any point, even taking him to court. He went all the way to court, we had the hearing date, and then the Chief Constable saw some sense and paid £4,000 in compensation, but no apology.
The case eventually reached court, where the auditor secured a payout of £3,999 plus legal costs. That is not a token settlement or a symbolic gesture. It is a substantial amount of taxpayer money paid out over an incident that arguably should never have escalated beyond a simple disagreement at the counter. Settlements like that rarely happen because authorities believe their position is strong. More often, they reflect a recognition that defending the officer's actions under proper legal scrutiny would have been extremely difficult. What makes the outcome even more striking is the auditor's claim that the Chief Constable never offered any form of apology. The force was apparently willing to hand over thousands of pounds in compensation, effectively acknowledging the seriousness of what occurred, yet still unwilling to publicly admit fault or extend basic professional accountability. That silence says a great deal. It creates the impression that protecting institutional image mattered more than rebuilding public trust or acknowledging that mistakes had been made. The entire incident demonstrates how quickly a minor situation can spiral when officers lose sight of the legal boundaries of their authority. What began as a civil disagreement over a coin, something that should never have required police intervention in the first place, escalated into a wrongful arrest because assumption, ego, and authority replaced calm legal assessment. Instead of de-escalating the dispute, the officers repeatedly expanded it by inventing new justifications as earlier ones fell apart.